Hi, this is Ashio, and welcome back to Echo. We are deep into Leo's route now, and we're in a very bad situation. We were in the middle of having a disagreement with Leo, because we kind of figured out that he's kind of manipulating us in a way that we don't want him to do. And in the middle of that conversation, these two guys came in with a gun, and they've shot Janice. She's dead on the floor, and we're going to try and escape. Hopefully, we're not going to get killed. So we got to make a choice. What way do we run to? The kitchen? Try and go out the back? Or go to the front? We don't know what's in the back door. Let's go out the front. I have no idea if that kitchen has an exit, and there's no way I can risk it. Don't look back, Chase. Go as fast as you can. As I charge down the aisle, I almost trip over the large form of Janice. Yes, she got shot. She's laying on her stomach, hands outstretched. A smear of red leads to the knife a few feet in front of her. I don't have time to dwell on it as I leap over her body and then charge through the doors. The bright sun and heat contrasts heavily with the cool dimness of the diner, but I don't have time to wait for my eyes to adjust. I take off down the road, and a few seconds later I hear the door smash as something larger and heavy comes right after me. I don't look back. I gasp and wheeze as I run up the road and turn onto Leo Street. No one's around, and aside from the dull thumping some distance behind me, it's completely silent. Something terrible has happened. And not just in the diner, it's the entire town. I'm not sure why I decided to run for Leo's house, but my mind is numb and my reasoning is gone. Briefly I think about Gudzu, but as I run past his yard, I don't see any sign of him, and I don't have time to try his door. I slam into Leo's door, pushing it open as I do. I slam it back shut and lock it with the deadbolt, then take off down the hall for Leo's room. I hear the doorknob turning back and forth as something heavy slams into it. I don't even know if Leo has a landline, and I look left and right wildly, not spotting a single thing that might be a telephone. I reach Leo's room and shut the door, wishing it had a lock. Jumping to the outlet with my wall charger, I clumsily take out my phone out of my pocket. It takes 3 tries to successfully jam the damn thing into my phone. Bouncing with terror, I watch as the screen lights up, giving me the battery charging symbol. Not enough power for it to power on. Something shatters just down the hall, and I almost piss myself, and it's followed by silence. I don't dare to even breathe. And then the house seems to shake as the bear ambles about, looking for me. I get down on my knees and try to squeeze up under the desk. I look at my phone again, but it's still at 0%. I'm out of time. The door swings open with a crash and the bear spots me instantly. He rushes at me, and I let out an involuntary scream. I dive out from under the desk as soon as he's on top of me, and I try to roll away. He's big but slow as hell, and I manage to get to my feet. It's at that moment I remember Leo's gun. But just as my eyes flick in that direction, he lunges at me and swings a huge fist at my face. I jerk back, but he still clips my chin, sending me into a spin and my world into blackness. I stare at the floor, mind wandering in circles. There's heavy breathing above me, and as I get to my hands and knees, something impacts my side so hard it sends me rolling into the wall. I stare at the ceiling, lungs broken, as I writhe around for air. The bear obscures my vision, then reaches down to grab me by the shirt and yank me up. He stares at me, and I stare back before he swings me into the wall again, and my vision goes dim. He does it again and again. On the 5th swing, the dimming finally turns to black. Wow, he beat the crap out of us. The darkness that surrounds me is painful. I feel like I'm floating in a black sea, and nothing about it is comforting or peaceful. It's like a fitful doze when you have a really bad fever. It feels awful and murky and sick. I feel my head tilt back, and a lightning bolt arcs through my head. I try to open my eyes, but they only manage to flutter, and I see flashes of red above me. Something's hooked under my back, and I'm dangling from it. I imagine a rope tied around me, holding me above the dark abyss below. Is this hell? I grit my teeth as the searing red becomes too much to look at, and I close my eyes again. This must be a nightmare, one that feels too real. I've had them before, and I know how to deal with them. I just need to go back to sleep, to drift off, and I'll wake back up in my bed. Go back to sleep, and wake back up in my dorm. Wait, in Echo? I try to think, try to prod back into my memories. Where was I last? What was the last thing that I remember doing? Trying to remember is monumental, more than I can handle, unfortunately. I drift back into unconsciousness. I'm pulled back into the sickly dark as something jolts my body. I grimace and gasp. I'm filled with such a feeling of unprovoked loneliness and despair that I actually feel my eyes watering and a sob escapes my mouth. I hear a soft chuckle above me and I go quiet. I still don't know where I am or what's going on at all, but that laugh is enough to tell me that I don't want to be where I am. The feeling of hanging from a rope is gone now. Instead, I'm lying on something flat and hard and my arms and legs are spread out. The air is cool now and my skin is cold and wet, like I've been sweating a lot. The feeling is especially strong along my back and I want to roll over, but I can't. Something's holding my arms down and there's a rattling sound when I try to move. I moan and try to open my eyes again, though it's almost like they're glued shut. With a little more effort, I manage to crack one open. At first, all I see is a blur of colours above me, and I have to blink a few times to clear it. Slowly, the image comes together, and I'm able to make out that someone is there above me. Oh my god. I feel my blood run cold, realising that someone has been watching me this whole time. But I'm lying down. How is someone on the ceiling? I try to speak, but only a dry, crackling squeak comes out of my throat. At this point, my vision has cleared enough to make out an otter. An otter? I squint. A blue shirt, beige pants? I gasp and reflexively try to draw back from the thing. Is it me? It smiles. It's missing my goatee. How? The flat surface I'm lying on tilts precariously and my stomach lurches. I try to clutch at the surface, though there's nothing to grab onto. I shut my eyes and gag as I feel my stomach swirling around inside me. All I can do is pray for it to stop, feeling like everything around me is about to fall over. The ache in my head is magnified tenfold and tears start to leak from my eyes. Just when I think I'm about to slip off the face of the earth, the ground starts to tilt back the other way. I swallow and gasp for air, my entire body shaking and sweating all over again. I feel like I've been swimming too long and my body is exhausted. The hell's going on? I remember that someone was staring down at me from the ceiling, and I open my eyes again, fearful. I cringe as I see that same otter staring down at me, the otter that's clearly wearing the same clothes as I am. But now it's not smiling. A tear-stained expression is on its face. It's a mirror. A mirror on the ceiling? I try to sit up, but come up short, gagging as something tightens around my neck. I try to move my hands to whatever it is, and that doesn't work either. That same rattling sound I heard earlier makes me look toward my right hand, and what I see makes my blood freeze. Around my wrist is what looks like a leather strap. I desperately look to my other hand and find the same result. Looking at my feet, I see the same contraptions fixed to my ankles. When I try to lift one of my feet, I see metal glinting from underneath, making me think that the leather is bolted onto the platform. Panic rises up in my chest, and I kick my feet and try to flail my hands, but the straps hold firm into what looks like wooden planks, which is the platform that I'm lying on. They're arranged in a way to leave me spread eagle. Over the leather, I can smell all kinds of musk, though the strongest one reminds me of Clint. I try to lift up my head, but the thing around my throat is too tight, and it instantly makes me choke again. My head throbs. Tears start to form in my eyes again as I try to think back. Where the fuck am I? Is this like a prank of some kind? Maybe my friends at the dorm are trying to scare me? Had I been drinking at a party? No, wait, I'm in Echo. That's the last place I remember being. I'm here for a project and I'd been with my old friends. I was with Leo and I'd been at the diner. Suddenly, all of the horrible things that happened that day came rushing back. Janice, Clint, Brian, the gun. Oh my god, had that really happened? I struggled a bit more and tried to think. I had to run to Leo's house. Leo, I don't know what happened to him. I left him with Duke. And then Brian, he'd been chasing me and tried to break in. I start to breathe heavily again as I realise where I might be. Brian got me when I was trying to run and hide. He just fucking attacked me. I look around. I'm in a small room, what looks like a living room of some kind. There's a couch on my right, and a wall with a clock on it to the left, ticking away. There's a window too, and along with the ticking, the wind blowing outside is the only other sound that I can hear. Looking down toward my leg, I can see what looks like a tiny kitchen with some cupboards and a countertop. Dishes and junk are piled high along the length of the counter, and it smells like cigarette smoke. Judging by the layout and the size of the place, it looks like that I'm in a trailer home. A small moan of terror escapes my lips. I'm in Brian's house. I remember Cud telling me that he lived in one. Tears start leaking out of my eyes again, even though the crying is making my head throb all over again. All I can think about is what he was doing to Clint. No, I have to calm down. I don't want to attract any attention if he's actually nearby. After what happened in the diner, the cops have to be on their way if they aren't already here. People eat in the diner all the time. Someone, one of my friends probably, would find it and call someone. I just have to wait until they find me. I swallow again, feeling my body break out into a cold sweat all over again. What is going on? They wanted something from us, I remember that at least. But what? Duke had been saying something about seeing things, and that we might be responsible. I squeeze my eyes shut and shake my head, but then immediately stop when my head throbs from the movement. None of this makes any sense at all. Am I still dreaming? At that moment, I hear a soft mumbling in the distance through the thin walls of the trailer. I freeze and hold my breath. It's a little ways off, but I'm almost positive that it's Duke. The high, wheezily whine mixed with the occasional smoker's cough is unmistakable. It's coming closer, and I can start to make out what he's saying. Because we're already fucked here, you think we can just let them go and it'll all be fine? I don't know who he's talking to, but the sound of an accompanying heavy lumbering step gives me an idea. It's worth it though, if we can figure out what the fuck's going on. It sounds like they're right up against the trailer now. I can hear them walking around it, toward the small door on the right side of the kitchen. Leo ain't saying shit yet, but I think it might be the otter. He's the one I seen last week. The footsteps stop in front of the door, and I listen hard, my heart pounding in my chest. I hope you haven't done anything to him. I didn't. Brian's uncharacteristically high-pitched voice sends a chill up my spine, my fur flaring out with it. You bet your ass you haven't. If you do any of your fucked up shit to him. I stop breathing, staring at my terrified expression in the mirror. What I'm saying is, we still got a chance to get out of this. What we've done is bad enough, but if we can get him to understand. They stop talking, and that's when I hear Brian's heavy, laboured breathing. I'm not breathing at all, worried they'll be able to hear it, even though they already know I'm here. I let it out with a gasp as the door suddenly swings open and Duke comes up to the steps, looking around before spotting me. Brian, you're one sick fuck. I tense up as the massive shadow appears behind him, and it feels like the entire trailer tips a bit as Brian makes his way up the same steps. Brian's presence is so imposing and frightening that I didn't even notice that Duke is now right next to me. I jump when he sets his hand on my left arm. I jerk my head to look at him wide-eyed. Hey, calm down. I ain't gonna hurt ya. Brian chuckles, and Duke shoots him a look. He turns his attention back to me, softening his expression, at least as much as he can, with his scraggly, drug-fucked face. We just need to get some information from you. I open my mouth to speak, but all that comes out is a dry squeak. Brian chuckles again, and makes his way to stand to my right. I cringe away from him and his stench of old sweat as he grins down at me with his yellow teeth. Brian, get some fucking water. Brian looks at Duke with a strange face before turning back to the kitchen. Hey, don't worry about him. I know this thing. Duke taps one of the balls with a finger. I know it looks bad, but we just gotta hold you here for a bit. Yeah, he's into this kind of thing. Duke glares at him as Brian comes back from the kitchen with a ceramic mug. Yeah, you're that way too. Brian visibly bristles and his face loses any of the sick humour it once had, and Duke clears his throat. Things have been happening here, and we want to find out why. What? Duke furrows his brows, like a kid trying to figure out something difficult. You see, people ain't right in the head here. No shit. Duke seems to immediately read my thought process, because he holds up his hands and shakes his head. Yeah, I know. What we're doing ain't exactly right in the head either. Brian gives his dumb chuckle again, but I keep my face averted from him, partly because I really can't stand the smell. But we're all a little fucked up here. What I'm talking about is something else, like what you saw with Janice. I shift a little as I'm reminded about what happened in the diner. Is she dead? Duke looks genuinely sad. I don't know, and it's a damn shame, but you saw the way she came at me. That's the shit I'm talking about. I look at the weasel's waistband and immediately see the handgun tucked into his pants there. And I was hoping to stop it before any of this happened, but now, everything's gone to shit. Brian finishes for him, and I can feel him move closer to the platform I'm laying on. Again, I avoid eye contact, not wanting to provoke him in any way. Yep, and it's only going to get worse. Duke just looks at me, like that's all the information that I need. I don't know what you're talking about. I see a twitch of irritation on Duke's face, and I hold my breath. I mean, what's happening out there? Duke shakes his head. What's happening everywhere? It wasn't just Janice that lost her mind. Duke looks back at the window suddenly, his fur standing on end. I look too, but all I see are the leaves and branches, the late afternoon sun filtering through them. Duke's quiet for a while before he starts speaking again without turning round. It happened to my granddaddy and my daddy, and now it's happening to me. I close my eyes, wondering if Duke is just as crazy as Janice was. If he does, I doubt he even has a clue what he's doing right now. Dale's missing, Cynthia drove off into the desert. Duke turns around to look back at me. We saw your cat friend running down the street on the way here, saying someone's after him. TJ? The thing is, we've all got something after us. Something bad. Won't let you leave when it starts. What's after you? I flinch as Brian speaks just above me, leaning down toward my face. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Bullshit. I flinch again, as Duke's concerned demeanour immediately drops away. Why do you think we came to get Leo and you? He pauses, like I should actually know the answer. I feel myself starting to panic again, with these two crazy hillbillies looming over my body. I don't know what... Duke slaps me, and I gasp in shock. I saw you hanging around this fucking town before you even got here late at night, lurking around. I'm still cringing from the slap, and I keep my eyes closed, as if not seeing any of this is going to make it stop. And then once all your friends get here and all hell breaks loose, you think that's a fucking coincidence? It's quiet for a moment, and all I can hear is the rush of blood in my ears. Is this really happening? I feel Duke touch my arm again, and I flinch in fear. Hey. I feel like he wants me to look at him, so I slowly open my eyes, tears spitting out as I do. The blurry shape of Duke dances in front of me. I'm not saying you did it, or that you wanted it to happen. I don't say anything because I still don't know what he's talking about, but I know I can't tell him that. It's just that you gotta know something, anything, so that we can stop this. Yeah, so we've played a couple of these endings now, and there seems to be an event where basically the entire town just goes to shit. All of the haunted shit, all of the cursed shit, it all comes out, it possesses everyone, monsters show up, and it just is a big old mess. And somehow Chase is sort of at the centre of it, but we don't know what he can do. Duke starts to pet my arm, and I shiver. Brian is breathing heavily next to me, and a glance at him shows that his expression is more interested now, almost eager. Duke still hasn't answered my question. It makes no sense that they go so far as to kidnap us. But why didn't you just ask us? Why all of this? I lift my hands weakly, making the platform rattle. Duke's face darkens. Because I've been asking Leo all week what the fuck you guys are doing and he wouldn't say shit. Duke stops petting my arm and scratches behind his head. And, someone told me that you would know. I stare at him. Who? Who told you? Someone I know, and it makes sense. Something bad happens, and if you don't fix it, it won't stop coming after you. I shut my eyes and almost sob. Says they know, and I thought it had to be Leo or you, considering what we've been seeing the past few weeks. Duke pauses. Or maybe one of your other friends. My mind briefly flashes to TJ. I don't know what you're talking about. I wait for another slap, but it doesn't come. I open my eyes again, and Duke is looking back out the window. We're kind of protecting you too. I stare at the back of his head. Things are getting worse out there, and if we don't figure something out soon, we're all gonna die. Duke's voice is dead and distant. Brian, though, touches my other arm, and I gasp, shrinking away. He's smirking down at me, looking at my stomach or crotch, somewhere down there. Brian, stop. Duke's turned back around, looking over me at the bear. We're not getting anywhere right now, and I gotta get back to the wolf. Even though Duke is the one that hit me, I'm terrified at the thoughts of being left alone with Brian. Duke sees my face. Don't worry, Chase. Even though you're lying to us, I don't plan to let this pervert have his way with you. Brian snorts. Brian knows what will happen if he does. Duke gives Brian a cold, callous stare, and this time Brian doesn't give his stupid grin back. But you'd better hope your fuck buddy says something soon, because if not, we might have to get mean. Duke heads for the door, turning to look over his shoulder. Just feed him and make sure he doesn't escape, that's it. And with that, Duke briskly disappears out the door, a golden flash of afternoon light lighting up the dim trailer. Brian and I listen to the weasel's soft, anxious footsteps recede into the distance. As soon as the sound's gone, Brian stands up. I turn my head in time to see him whirl around and smash his fist into the wall. I jump as much as I can in my restraints before he does it again, this time slamming both of his fists against the wall. Fucking... He screams so loudly, my ears immediately start ringing. I think he's talking to me, so I brace myself for what I'm sure is going to be the worst moment of my life. But he stalks right past me, not even looking at me. Instead, he strides up to the kitchen counter. Once there, he picks up a dirty pan, then raises it over his head before bringing it down with a crash. I hear glass shatter before he does it again and again. Goddamn piece of shit. He throws the pan across the room to crash into the wall. I'll fucking kill him. I'll kill him. I stare at him, my eyes wide, as I watch him stamp his feet like a little kid. Then he slaps himself across the face twice. After that, he closes his hand into a fist and punches himself in the head repeatedly, with a force that would knock me out cold. It might be funny if I wasn't tied down to a contraption in a trailer belonging to Brian. Brian stumbles after what seems like the fifth blow and covers his face. His massive shoulders shake with sobs. Thinks he can do whatever the fuck he wants. Thinks he could boss me around. Brian whirls around and slams both his fists into the counter several more times, the sound of shifting glass accompanying it. I'll kill him. I'll kill him. I'll kill him. His voice crescendos in pitch and volume before he finally slumps against the counter, head in his hands, as he starts crying again. I breathe as quietly as I can, not wanting to draw any attention to myself. I'll get him. I'll fucking get him. Won't control me no more. Suddenly, his quaking shoulders freeze. Slowly, he turns, and with a sinking heart, I realise he's looking right at me. The fur on his cheeks, already matted before, are now flat and shiny with wet. Snot runs from his nose down to his upper lip. Then I see red dripping from his left fist. The fur on the right is matted with blood as well. He watches me for a while and grins. Am I funny to you? I open my mouth, but nothing comes out. He suddenly strides up to the end of my platform, standing between my spread legs. I feel numb, the fear taking up every fibre of my being. I feel nothing else. You like seeing him make fun of me? I try to speak again, but still, nothing comes out. I swallow. No. My lips tremble and my voice shakes. I've never stuttered so hard in my life. You know what I'd do to you if I could? Brian sneers down at me, the wet fur on his cheeks bristling out. Oh, I swear to God, I'd fucking tear your balls off right fucking now. He rests a huge hand on my crotch and presses down. I cringe and whine. Please. Brian's grin only gets bigger, and he rubs his crotch with his other hand as he watches me wince. Oh good, you already know how to beg. He leans forward toward my face, moving his hand to clamp over my mouth. And then I'd hang you for hours. I stare at him, breathing hard through my nose, tears leaking down the sides of my face. His hand slides down from my mouth to my neck, and he starts to squeeze. Then I'd give you a little stool to stand on when you start to go out, and then I'd kick it away again. I gasp and gag, both from the squeezing and from his reeking breath. He stares hard at me, and I can feel his crotch grinding up against me. Yeah, gross. Then he blinks and slowly pulls back. He watches me gasp and sob for a while before reaching down again. I try to turn my head away, letting out a moan of terror, but he doesn't grab my neck again. Instead he prods and teases the fur, checking the skin on my neck. Better not bruise you. If that fucking guy saw that, his expression darkens again. If you fucking tell Duke about this. He raises a fist and I cringe. No, no, I won't, I swear. I turn my head away, eyeing his raised fist. He holds it there a while, watching me. He seems to be calculating something, like he's wondering if he can get away with what he's about to do. And then he seems to make up his mind. Good. With that, he slams his fist down right into the centre of my torso, just below the ribs. My vision flashes and I hear a rasping, droning wheeze that I realise is coming from my mouth. It goes on and on until there's no air left in me, and then I can't breathe in again. My vision goes black as I suffocate, writhing against the restraints, wanting to curl up into a little ball and disappear. It feels like hours, days, before I finally get a sip of air. My mouth gapes as I try to suck it in faster. Brian's standing over me, and I'm somehow surprised that he's got a worried look on his face. He probably thinks he's killed me. But then my stomach starts to turn and lurch. Before I even realise I'm about to puke, a gush of vomit fills my mouth and I start to choke. Shit. Brian hurries to my side, and as I'm giving a second heave mixed with a gag, he tips the platform over sideways. His huge paw pushes my face to the side to look at the ground, and I watch as it all spills to the ugly shag carpet. When I finish, Brian slowly tilts the table back up, looking at me with disgust. At this point, I'm too tired to cry. Instead, I lay there in a daze, occasionally hacking or coughing. Brian goes to the kitchen, rustling around a while before returning with water and paper towels. He wipes my face and nose before tilting my head up to drink the water. Rinse and spit. He holds the mug there until I do as he says, and then he gets down to his knees. I watch his head bob up and down as he busies himself with a mess on the floor, muttering about Duke finding out. I'm too numb to really care right now, though. Right now, I'm starting to realise that I might not survive this. Brian calms down pretty quick after his tantrum. Once he cleans up the mess, he splays out on the couch and starts watching TV. It's some kind of cartoon about a pink cat, and he actually laughs along with the juvenile jokes. While this goes on, I lay quietly against my platform, trying not to start crying again. My mind keeps wandering back just hours ago, how everything seemed fine for the most part. I keep wishing that I could go back to the beginning of the week. Thinking about that makes me sentimental, and I'm longing to see Leo, TJ, Cole, Jenna, and even Flynn again. Where are they all right now? Duke said things were bad out there. Are they all in some kind of trouble? If that's the case, the cops should be here by now. Someone would have gotten word out, wouldn't they? If people were murdering each other, like what happened to Janice, there's no way that wouldn't be the case. Brian lets out another explosive laugh, wheeling his feet on the armrest of the couch. Earlier he tried to feed me some dried cereal, but it was like cardboard in my mouth, and after only a handful, I couldn't eat anymore. I'm just thankful that he's preoccupied with something else right now. There's a soft knock at the door. Brian jumps, quickly changing the channel to golf before he gets up and lumbers over to the door. He pauses, and then rifles through some magazines on a small table next to the couch. He pulls out a handgun that looks cartoonishly small in its hands before making his way to the door. I weakly turn my head in the direction and watch Brian open the door a crack. He chuckles. World's going to shit, and you're still coming here for more, huh? Brian pushes the door open a bit more, and I catch sight of a skinny, malnourished polecat. Clint's looking up at Brian, appearing even more dishevelled than usual. So are we doing Clint has stepped up onto the first step and looked into the trailer, immediately spotting me. He stares, the shock on his face almost comical. Brian turns to see what he's looking at, as if he'd forgotten that I was even there. He gets a start before shoving Clint back out the door. Yeah, I'm a fool today. Already got someone taking your spot, you know. Clint is now out of my line of sight, but I can hear him shuffling around in the dead vegetation. Please, I really need something right now. We can do it outside. There's a moment of silence as Brian seems to contemplate that. No, I got some business to take care of. Tomorrow, maybe. Clint starts to whine again, but Brian swings the door shut with a bang. Fucking dopehead. Brian walks back into the room, looking down at me and then back at the TV. Probably shouldn't have let him see you, though. He mumbles before sitting back down and switching the channel back to the cartoon. I stare up at my reflection. Even from here, I can see that my eyes are bloodshot, the fur on my face matted. There are dark spots on my shirt too, and distantly I wonder if Brian had broken ribs when he punched me. Then I remember that his hand had been bleeding when he did that. I feel strange right now. Numb. It kind of feels good after the whirlwind of emotions I'd had earlier. I still haven't caught up on everything that's happened since I was at the diner. Would I ever be able to? Would I have time if Brian planned to? A tinge of panic pierces through my fog of disassociation, and I clench my eyes shut, screwing up my face as I try not to start crying again. Brian snorts again at something on the TV. I open my eyes to the distraught Otter laying on the wooden torture contraption. Well, why is there a mirror on your ceiling? I surprise myself a little by asking the question. Apparently, I really don't give a fuck at this point. I see Brian look over at me from my peripheral vision. You really want to know? I shrug the best I can, continuing to stare passively up at the ceiling. The movement sends electric tingles through my arms, which are completely numb at this point. Well, Brian shifts around on the couch as he tries to get a better look at me. When I has my fun, I likes them to see what I'm doing. I stare up at the mirror, my expression still blank. I mean, it's not just about what I'm feeling, what they're feeling's important too. Fear. That's what Brian likes. Sure, I can choke you all I want, and cut you all I want, but when I do that to you, you're not thinking about what's actually happening. Brian shifts into a sitting position, now more interested in our conversation than his cartoons. I realise now I've probably made a mistake. Wanna see? I keep my face blank, staring at myself. I don't say anything. Brian gets up anyway and comes around to stand over me above my head, blocking my view of the mirror. His reeking stench fills my nostrils, but still, I try not to give him the satisfaction of seeing how afraid I'm starting to become. His massive hands reach around my head and start to fiddle with something I can't see. With one quick motion, the strap comes back down over my neck and my eyes widen. I grit my teeth and try to press my head as hard as I can onto the platform behind my head to lessen the strain. It's not a lot of pressure, but it's enough to make me want to gag. Brian chuckles again. See, you're probably only thinking about how it's hard to breathe right now, just trying to figure out how to make it stop, but... Brian leans back, revealing a terror-stricken Otter in the ceiling, his eyes bulging, teeth bared. Now you see what's happening to you. Your brain telling you, yeah, this is really fucking happening. The leather squeaks a bit as he pulls it down tighter. I start to writhe at this point and see my tongue sticking out, my face a mask of horror. You feel more, and that's what I like. Brian comes back into my vision, his expression different. He's really searching my face now, like he's looking for something. Maybe you like it too. Finally, with a final squeak of leather, Brian lets go, and I gasp hungrily for air. Brian pets my head while I cough, inhaling shakily. Don't exaggerate, that wasn't nothing. He moves away again and slumps back into the couch, pulling at his crotch. Your buddy Clint gets it way worse. I choose not to stare at the choking Otter in the ceiling and instead look out the window, feeling fresh tears roll down my face. I'm not sure if it's from the choking or the black hole in my chest. I watch the leaves rustling around in the wind and think about where the others are and why no one's come to help me. Finally, I turn my head back to the ceiling. The blank expression has returned. Brian continues to chuckle at his cartoons, and despite myself, I ask another question. Have you ever killed someone? For the first time, Brian ignores me. I don't say anything for the rest of the day. I stare into the darkness, the only faint source of light coming from the moonlit leaves through the window. It's been less than 24 hours since I've been kidnapped. Still, it makes no sense that someone hasn't found me. Is what Duke said about the town true? I wonder what Leo's doing right now, if what he's going through is just as bad. I doubt it is. At least Duke seems slightly less unhinged. I give a soft, trembling sigh, my head still throbbing from the day's events. The thunderous snoring from Brian is literally shaking the platform I'm on, and though I drifted off a few times, I can't sleep. He's right next to me, his stained couch apparently doubling as his bed. I shift around on the contraption for what seems like the 100th time, trying to get comfortable, when I feel something. There's more give in my right arm than I remember. In fact, it's incredibly loose. I pause, and then experimentally wiggle my arm around before easily pulling my hand out from the restraint. I freeze, disbelieving, not wanting to believe, in case it isn't true somehow. Painfully, I crane my neck to look at my right arm. Though it's dark, I can see that my arm is clearly free, my elbow on the board, hand in the air. I swallow hard, listening to Brian's snores again to make sure he's actually asleep. I try to keep my breathing even, not wanting to make any more sound than I need to, but I'm almost sobbing with relief at this point. Now I'm able to partially sit up and make short work of the left arm restraint. Fully sitting up now, I do away with the final 2 ankle restraints and slide off of the table quietly. Brian is still snoring at full volume, and it covers up what little sound I make. Making my way over the messy floor, I find the steps and try not to stumble down them to open the door. Incredibly, there's no squeaking or rattling as I do, and before I know it, I'm outside in the cool air. I run through the woods and onto the road, sobbing with joy now as I see Leo's house. The lights are on, and as I'm running toward it, I think I even see Cole's horns through the window. I run up the steps onto the porch and bang on the door. Leo, Cole, I got out. Open the door. I try the handle when it opens, swinging inward to blackness. I stare, trying to comprehend. You really fell for that. I hear my own voice, but it isn't me that said it. Instead it's higher pitched, like I'm hearing it from a video recording rather than my own throat. Then I'm sucked into the blackness and slammed hard back down onto a wooden platform. Here again. All at once, I realise what happened, and my heart feels like it drops through my chest. Of course, the dream. I'm back in the hot, stifling trailer, and it looks even darker than it did in my dream. I close my eyes and start to cry quietly. It feels like I've just found out that I'm locked up in a psycho's trailer all over again. I turn my head and look out the window above Brian, longing for some daylight. And then I see 2 white eyes set against a black face staring back in at me. I jump. The fuck? Am I still dreaming? Then I see 2 beige-coloured ears above the head. Kudzu? I gasp again, quieter. I'm overcome with relief once again, but the fear that I'm still dreaming is almost overpowering it. I wave my left hand as much as I can, but I'm not sure he can see it. I realise that none of the light from the window is falling on me. Kudzu moves to the side and back again, squinting, clearly trying to see inside. I think about making the noise, calling out his name, but I have no idea of how deep a sleeper Brian is. As if on cue, Brian gives a louder snore and rolls over. Kudzu seems to have heard it, his big ears perking before he ducks down. My head hurts, just losing sight of him, and I strain at my bonds. Brian seems to be waking up though, mumbling something in his sleep. No, you're dead. I pull with my right arm again, in case my dream had been onto something. It doesn't budge. Fucking... Brian's really starting to kick around now, his massive form rolling over onto his stomach, rubbing his face into the pillow. He starts to make loud gasping sounds as he gets to his knees on the bed. Back off! He holds his hands up, snarling. You're dead. You're dead! I stare at him, almost forgetting about Kudzu. His eyes are open and they snap to me, his hands still out. No, no. His face is etched with horror, eyes wide and white in the darkness. He backs up against the back of the couch as he continues to stare. I stare back at him, unsure of what he's going to do. After about 10 seconds, his expression starts to melt from horror to confusion. I continue to stare back, bracing for another explosion from him for whatever reason. His shoulders droop again and frowns at me. What did you see her? My mouth is dry, so I have to swallow a few times before I can answer. Who? Brian doesn't respond and starts to look around the trailer. I see Kudzu starting to poke his head up again. At this point, I've made it up in my mind that I want to escape tonight. I'm not going to spend another minute with this maniac. Making a decision that could mean life or death so suddenly is terrifying and exhilarating. I don't give myself time to think about it. Brian. He doesn't answer, starting to get up and look around. Brian, I have to go to the bathroom. Brian sighs as he flips on the light. Kudzu drops out of view again. Brian heaves a huge sigh before turning to the counter. He reaches for a pan and dumps out some murky water into the sink. I wrinkle my nose. He shrugs at me. What? This'll do. No, I have to use the toilet. My stomach's feeling really bad right now. Brian turns and really looks at me. Like what? You gonna puke? I shift on the platform. No, I think I've got diarrhea. Brian pulls a look of extreme disgust, which is kind of funny for someone who apparently never showers. Oh, come on. He glares at me like it's my fault that I might be sick. He looks around for a while and then back down at the pan. The bear seems to quickly disregard that idea and sets it back down on the counter. He comes over next to me and starts to undo the restraints. But if you try anything... No, I promise, I just really need to go. Brian grumbles as he starts to roughly undo my restraints. I take care not to look at his crotch as it's pressed uncomfortably close to my face. As he pulls my right arm out, I gasp in shock and pain. It feels like a million needles are poking through it as he pushes my arm down next to my body. Wait, fuck! Brian pauses as he watches me grimace in pain, and I worry he's getting off on it. At that moment, though, there's some rustling next to the window, and I try to groan over it. Ah, fuck. The bear looks at me, bewildered and annoyed. What? Now my dream seems even more ridiculous that I'd so easily been able to run off. Everything's fallen asleep. Just take it slower. Brian sighs even louder and gets to work on my left arm anyway. This time he doesn't yank my arm out though, and just lets me slowly move it on my own. It's not nearly as bad as my right arm, which is still violently tingling, but I have to grip my teeth as I move it to rest on my chest. Luckily, my legs are fine, and I'm able to move them easily after Brian takes them out. It makes me worry about what I'm going to try, since I'm not nearly as strong as I should be. Brian is clearly on guard as he helps me sit up from the contraption, keeping his distance as he holds onto my arm. I sit there a moment, letting the circulation return to my limbs as I try not to fall over from the dizziness. Brian finally gives a growl of annoyance and pulls me off the wooden platform. I realise that this is the moment I have to make my move. There's nothing nearby for me to grab, so instead I swing with everything I have to smash my fist up against the side of Brian's face. Something cracks in my hand and pain runs up my arm. I gasp and cringe and Brian grunts. Brian pauses and slowly brings his hand up to feel the side of his face. I guess I'd hoped that I'd be able to knock him out with one punch. But doing that as an otter to a bear, especially a bear like Brian, would have been quite the feat. Brian does seem stunned though, and that's all I need, as I take in a huge breath and scream as loud as I can. Kudzu! Brian whirls on me, swinging his fist along with him. I duck immediately, covering my head with one arm, the other still locked in Brian's grasp. He only partially misses, a fist catching the top of my head and my arm. It knocks me to the ground, and I sit there in a daze. I don't have long to collect myself, because Brian is putting a foot back to kick me. Shut up! I roll to the side and start trying to back away while I'm crouched, but Brian yanks me up by my arm, my head jerking back with the force. Now I'm starting to wonder if Kudzu ended up leaving. If that's the case, then I'm definitely dead, because there's no way I'm going to break his grasp. As I'm thinking this, the door bangs open. Brian is in the middle of drawing his fist back when it happens that he freezes, looking over at the door. Kudzu stands there, his eyes wide behind his black mask, chest heaving. He's scared, I can tell, but Brian's shock gives me the opening I was looking for. I reach in between his legs and grab his balls. Weirdly enough, the first thought I have is about how fucking big it is. It takes both my hands to wrap around it fully, and when I do, I twist and yank down as hard as I can. I pour all of my fear and anger into the attack, snarling as I do. The scream that Brian lets out is so high-pitched, I feel like every glass in the trailer is going to explode. This attack is all I have left, so when his retaliation comes, I don't do anything to defend myself. Luckily, it's not a punch or a kick, but rather he grabs the fur on the back of my head, along with my shirt, and tries pulling me back. My face stretches back as I stubbornly hold on, and just yank down even harder. His sack is stretched and distorted so badly, it's barely even recognisable as balls. His screaming suddenly cuts off with the sound of a deep, sickening smack. Immediately, Brian's body crumples onto me as he falls to his hands and knees. It happens in a way that he's splayed over me, his face inches from mine. I have time to smell his gag-inducing breath before the sound happens again. This time, I see Kudzu swinging something down hard from overhead, and Brian's head jolts. I watch as his eyes lose their focus on me, and he slumps down. I turn my head sideways as he comes to rest on my body, crushing the air from my lungs. Kuzu is there immediately and pushes Brian's body aside to the point of being able to pull me out. He pulls me into a sitting position next to him. Are you okay? He's shaking and I can hear his ragged breath in my ear. The contrast between being engulfed in Brian's stench to smelling Kuzu's shampooed fur and peppermint breath is striking. I can't speak, and instead I lean against Kuzu and wrap my arms around him as I sob. Kuzu holds me as he looks me over. Can you walk? I nod silently as I press my face into the fur on his shoulder. Alright, come on. We can't stay here. He stands slowly, keeping me in the embrace as he guides me toward the door. Okay, I think we're going to have to cut that off there. That was a very intense episode. Lots of horrible things happen, but we're going to make our escape a little bit more in the next episode. This is Usho signing off, and hopefully I will see you next time.